A bright red General Motors Futurliner rolls into town after dark, then stops like a building on wheels. Its side panel rises open, lights snap on, and the truck becomes a traveling exhibition stage. Beside it, the crowd looks tiny. This thing is 33 feet long, weighs 12 tons, and seems too theatrical to be practical. So why did General Motors build only 12 of these strange, expensive machines if ordinary people were never supposed to buy them? Because the Futurliner was not selling a car, it was selling a version of the future. In the 1930s, General Motors had a problem every giant company shared. There was no easy way to show the country what it was building. Television existed, but it was not yet a household medium. A company could buy newspaper ads, print brochures, and send salesmen into towns, but none of that could make people stand in front of a working display and feel that industry was changing their lives. The model came from the Chicago World's Fair of 1933 and 1934. Officially, it was called A Century of Progress, and it turned science, transportation, electricity, and modern design into public entertainment. Millions of visitors did not just read about tomorrow. They walked through it. General Motors took that lesson on the road. In 1936, it launched the Parade of Progress, a traveling corporate exhibition that carried demonstrations, machines, and lectures from city to city. It was part trade show, part classroom, and part civic celebration. When the parade arrived, it was not meant to feel like a sales pitch. It brought exhibits about diesel power, sound technology, aerodynamics, chemistry, highway safety, and the promise of modern engineering. For communities far from major fairs and big city showrooms, this was rare access to the industrial future. That made the parade powerful. General Motors turned a media limitation into a public event that felt educational, patriotic, and futuristic. But if the idea was simply to bring exhibits to people, why did it need vehicles as extreme as the Futurliners? The Futurliner was the answer because it was not designed to disappear into traffic. It was designed to arrive like a moving monument. Harley Earl's styling department gave it the same showmanship General Motors used on dream cars. The body wore bold red and white paint, with sweeping Art Deco curves, bright trim, wide white-wall tires, and dual rear wheels tucked under massive fenders. From the street, it looked less like a bus and more like a locomotive crossed with a theater marquee. The scale was just as outrageous. Each Futurliner was about 33 feet long, 8 feet wide, and roughly 11 to 12 feet tall. Fully loaded, it weighed more than 12 tons. That made it larger and heavier than many commercial trucks of the period. But its purpose was not hauling freight. It carried a stage, a display, and a message. The strangest feature was the driver's seat. Instead of sitting low and forward like a normal truck driver, the operator sat high in the center, above the windshield line, reached by steps inside the cab. From outside, that made the Futurliner look almost faceless, with the driver perched in a small command post. From inside, it must have felt like guiding a ship down city streets. Once parked, the vehicle changed roles completely. Large clamshell doors opened along the sides, revealing built-in exhibits and presentation equipment. Lighting rigs helped turn the display into a controlled stage. A roof tower or sign structure rose above the body, making the Futurliner visible across a fairground or town square. That was the point. It was transportation while moving, architecture while parked, and advertising before anyone read a single word. General Motors did not just build a vehicle for the Parade of Progress. It built the parade's most memorable exhibit. When the Futurliners arrived together, they were not promoting one new General Motors car. They were carrying a traveling argument about what modern life was supposed to become. A Parade of Progress stop worked like a temporary World's Fair. The convoy rolled into a town. The vehicles took their positions. Side panels opened. Lights came on, and each Futurliner became its own exhibit hall. Crowds could walk from display to display, as if a slice of the future had been unloaded onto a local fairground. The subjects were much bigger than automobiles. General Motors showed engines and power systems, but also aviation, jet propulsion, farm technology, automated manufacturing, and the science behind new materials. One exhibit might explain how better traffic engineering could make growing cities move more safely. Another could show how machines were changing factories and agriculture, The parade also presented inventions that felt almost impossible to many visitors. Television was demonstrated at a time when most American homes did not have a set. Stereophonic sound let people hear recorded audio with a depth they were not used to. Microwave cooking appeared as a glimpse of a kitchen where food could be heated by invisible energy instead of a flame. There were displays about chemistry, physics, and industrial research, all arranged to make science feel useful rather than distant. The message was that laboratories, highways, farms, kitchens, factories, and living rooms were all connected by the same march of progress. That is why the Futurliner mattered. It was not the future by itself. It was the delivery system for a complete vision, wrapped in spectacle, so families would stop, listen, and remember. The exhibits were impressive, but underneath the entertainment was a deeper message about who would build tomorrow. General Motors was not asking visitors to buy a specific car that day. It was asking them to believe that the company understood the future better than anyone else. That was the real product of the Parade of Progress: trust. A family could arrive for a free show, watch demonstrations about electricity, chemistry, traffic, farming, aviation, and home appliances, then leave with a simple impression. Progress was scientific. Progress was comfortable. Progress moved on wheels. And somehow, General Motors stood at the center of it. This was corporate advertising, but it was built to feel like education. That approach owed a great deal to Charles F. Boss Kettering, the famous General Motors inventor and research leader. Kettering believed engineering should be explained to ordinary people as a practical force that improved daily life. He was not just interested in machines. He wanted the public to see research as something that could make homes easier, roads safer, farms more productive, and travel more efficient. That framing made the Futurliners powerful. The exhibits let visitors reach that conclusion on their own. If the same company showing jet propulsion and television also built your automobile, then its name began to feel connected with intelligence, stability, and tomorrow's possibilities. For towns far from major World's Fairs or big industrial exhibitions, the effect was even stronger. The future did not appear in a distant magazine article. It parked on the edge of town, opened its panels, turned on its lights, and spoke in the language of science. But keeping that illusion alive was not easy. Behind every polished demonstration was a huge moving operation. Rare vehicles, trained presenters, mechanical upkeep, exhibit equipment, routes, schedules, fuel, permits, and constant repair. General Motors had built a traveling theater of optimism, and it was expensive to keep the curtain raised. A Futurliner was not just a truck with an exhibit inside. It was a self-contained stage that had to survive the road, then transform into a building in front of a crowd. Each stop required a coordinated crew. Drivers had to move the convoy from town to town on schedule. Technicians had to keep the diesel engines, lighting systems, generators, lifts, speakers, display mechanisms, and body panels working. Presenters had to rehearse the demonstrations, manage timing, answer questions, and keep thousands of visitors moving through the show without breaking the illusion. The vehicles themselves made that job harder. They were tall, heavy, unusual machines with dramatic red and white bodies, high driver positions, and large side panels that opened to reveal displays. Once parked, they looked less like transportation and more like roadside architecture. That was the point. General Motors wanted the public to feel that the future had arrived as a complete experience, not as a folding booth under a tent. But the same features that made the Futurliners unforgettable also made them impractical. They were too specialized for ordinary freight work, too elaborate for simple promotion, and too expensive to maintain without the full parade of progress around them. A normal commercial vehicle needed to earn money by carrying goods. A Futurliner earned its value only when the show was assembled, the lights were on, and the crowd was watching. That left the parade vulnerable. It depended on physical presence, careful routing, and enormous preparation. Soon, another technology would bring moving pictures, demonstrations, and corporate messaging directly into American homes, without needing a convoy at all. World War II stopped the Parade of Progress before it could become a permanent American institution. General Motors put the show on hold, and the Futurliners were no longer rolling from city to city with crowds gathered around their displays. When the parade returned in 1953, the country had changed. Americans were buying suburban homes, filling driveways with new cars, and bringing televisions into their living rooms. The Futurliners still looked spectacular, but they were now competing with a machine that did not need roads, hotel rooms, fuel stops, or a traveling crew. Television gave General Motors a faster way to sell the future. Demonstrations, advertisements, styling films, and futuristic imagery could reach millions of people at once. A family no longer had to wait for a convoy to arrive downtown. The message could appear after dinner, framed by the glow of a screen, inside the home itself. That shift made the parade's old model feel heavy. In the 1930s, driving technology into town was a powerful idea. By the 1950s, progress could be broadcast. The spectacle moved from public squares and fairgrounds to network programming, commercials, and televised auto reveals. General Motors ended the parade of progress in 1956. The Futurliners had been built for a kind of showmanship that depended on distance, arrival, and physical scale. Once the future could be delivered through mass media, the question became unavoidable. What do you do with machines built for a show the world no longer needs? Of the 12 Futurliners General Motors built, about 9 are generally reported to survive today, whether restored, stored, converted, or still under restoration. Their later lives were almost as unusual as the parade itself. Some entered museums. Some were converted by the Michigan State Police into safety liners for public safety exhibits. Others became stages, promotional vehicles, or long-forgotten restoration projects. One restored Futurliner even sold at auction for a multi-million-dollar price, proving that these machines had become artifacts, not just old trucks. Their value is not only rarity. They preserve a moment when a corporation believed the future had to be driven into town, parked on Main Street, and unfolded before a crowd. Thanks for watching. If you know another forgotten machine built to sell tomorrow, write it in the comments.